Michael Bacon, welcome to the Both Sides podcast. I'm personally quite excited for today because you're, which I didn't realize, the same age as me, 26, and doing phenomenal things, both personally, professionally, and in the real estate sector. Where I can resonate with you is the fact that you're building a brand outside of just real estate. Like, you've now created a social following, which we're having a few conversations off air, which has enabled you to actually skyrocket your career success. And I know from my experience this year alone, like the types of people you're able to meet, network, and the opportunities that come off the back of that is, exceptional. So although this is a real estate podcast, I'd like to start there about how you've been able to build your success at 26 so fast, and what strategies you've used and implemented that are a bit outside the norm to the typical agent.
Yep. No, it's a good question. Thanks for having me on. But I think it's leveraging a lot of social platforms to get anywhere in life. I think, and especially in our generation, not many people do it well enough. And I always say this to a lot of people too, it doesn't matter about your followers count. It doesn't mean anything. So it's about the engagement you get and the story that you tell behind it. And it's if we're, reaching out to brands or, influencers or people that, might have property related questions or anything like that, people are afraid to reach out. And I think I probably broke through that barrier, 6 years ago when before, I remember TikTok coming out. I didn't even know what TikTok was. And someone's like, you need to get on TikTok. I'm like, whatever. And I just didn't think about it. But I think a lot of people just didn't have that opportunity, and I just jumped on that very quickly about 6 or 7 years ago when, Reels started coming out, and worked with a really good content team around it. I said, well, I can see the market shifting here. And it went from a market where people, especially marketing-wise, were going from, basically doing print advertising, which we used to do a lot of, and it worked. But now it doesn't have the same effect, in my opinion, because it's the same concept, is that targets people that typically don't look at properties, but that's what social media does now too. So,
mate, it's funny because being an investment-based buyer's agent, we buy investment properties. But for me, my best investment I've done in my career is actually investing into the brand and the social side of things. How was investing into your brand added value to your success?
Well, I think it's a massive part of it, right? If you're not willing to invest in yourself, well, you're not going to go far, in my opinion. And I think that's something I wanted to invest in. A lot of people invest in community. A lot of people invest in, different events or whatever it is, and it works well for them. But for me, I started, 5-6 years ago doing vlogs. So I started I literally with Pixel Factory, my videographers, we would sit in the car for half a day. And back then they would charge me through the roof now by doing that. It's too expensive to do it. But the reality of it is years ago, that's what was happening now and then. So we, had to invest in it. And basically, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that with the social presence that you get, again, it's I always say this to people, you're a walking signboard. So everywhere you walk, especially in our industry, but it doesn't have to be in our industry. It can be in any industry. If you market very well, people know your face and your image, you're a walking signboard. So how do you want to be presented? And I think by investing the money back in the days kept investing in video and content marketing. And it's also, I think I added just the human element to it, because I always hate when people just try, everyone copies each other. But at the same time, I think is just, if you're not yourself, you can't market yourself. And I think that's one thing that I've done very well. I think going back, being in the industry for 7 years now, I think that I've just been myself. I've got a very dry sense of humour. And some of my videos show that, but there's also a professional way in how you can do that. And that's by getting the right content team behind you to do it. So yeah, if I didn't invest a lot of time and money, and back then it was, when I was 20, and I probably spent 20 to 30 grand a year on video. Jeez. And I didn't even have that money realistically, but I had the belief in myself and knew where this was going, that we just had to jump on it. So,
mate, well done. You came up on a radar probably about a year ago, and I sent a video to Daniel and I said, mate, look at this guy's videos, the next level. Who comes up with the concept ideas that you do in your videos? Because they're very, very different to the standard walking through, touching the kitchen bench style.
Mate, I still do that too, Yeah.
Who gives you those ideas? Is it yourself or is it a content team?
Me and the content team, yeah. I've got ADHD, so I would just come up with the most randomest ideas at any time. I might wake up at 12 o'clock at night and be like, holy shit, yeah, this could work. And I'll call my videographer, and he's the same. So Alex from Pixel Factory has been a massive part of that for me. But it's also working with the right team because, you know, some ideas might be from them, some ideas might be from me. They'll be like, hey, Bacon, we want to try this. Okay, cool, I don't like it. But it's also having that honest conversation and they're like, you know, I've got this crazy idea and then Alex would be like, Michael, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. So it's also having like that friendship and accountability, but you can actually throw ideas out and you start with an idea and you work on it. And you know what the funny thing is? Anyone can do it because probably about 80% of all my videos are not 100% organic from me. And you guys didn't realize that either. So
No.
this is so like, this is a thing about creativity. It's not hard to be creative. People just don't know how to do it.
People just don't take the time to think.
Correct. So like a lot of my viral videos have been replicated from some other random video overseas or something. And then we've worked off the back of it. So like, I don't know if you saw the paper plane video.
Yeah,
did.
that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I think that was the one I sent you,
You sent me
actually.
that
That,
one.
was the one I
That
sent
So
you.
that went viral. They got like 1 million+ views or something on it.
That was
on
crazy.
Instagram.
I sent that to everyone, by the way.
Yeah.
I was like, look at this guy.
And it was like, that was sick. But like that concept come from like some fashion label company in London. So I'm like, it wasn't even my idea. And like everyone's like, Michael, you're amazing, you're creative. I'm like, yeah, I am. But it's also like, you've got to think of a concept and an idea and work from it. And it's also like going through this exercise of video content, anyone can do it. Like you think you got to create a story. If you want to think outside the box and do something, how can you incorporate that into your content or media? And, you know, I always talk about getting hype around properties. So if you're getting, you know, it's not just about selling a property, but my biggest pitch is saying the same time I said, well, you know, what I can do is bring more people through than anyone else. And I said, I can guarantee that because these are all the statistics behind the campaigns that we've done. And I think there's been about 6 out of 10 properties that have sold recently, and all 6 of them have not come from organic marketing through like realestate.com and all that sort of stuff. They've actually pulled people out from basically not in the market to buying something because they've seen the story that we've created around the content.
And passive buyers are always the best buyers. Active buyers know the prices like the back of their hand. Passive buyers, they usually don't understand pricing of the market, so they usually pay more. So very smart move.
Do you know what's interesting hearing you talk? You've created a unique selling proposition because you've been like off the back of building brand creativity with social media. We've actually done the same for me with buyer's agency. My unique selling proposition is I've got the biggest database of agent relationships in the country to give you access to stock. For the younger listeners out there, what would be your advice to creating a USP? We've been able to do it through leveraging social media and leveraging other people. What would be your advice for those new up and coming agents to get in a similar position?
Don't be a real estate agent and just be a human being. Like that's probably my biggest thing is just
Be a human being.
yeah. But it's like, to be honest, I hate real estate agents, like the typical real estate agents. Like I love the industry and I love how hard people work, but it's just, I think if you're not yourself, it's very hard. And I think for a young agent starting, don't copy Michael Bacon. Don't copy someone else that's doing very well. You can look at it, but stay in your own lane and come up with your own concepts. You can copy and do that, but you need to add your personal touch to it. So I think if someone's starting their own brand, what's important to you? Like, for example, me, I like humor and all this sort of stuff. So I'm like, well, I'm going to create that in my videos. If someone else did that and they're not humorous whatsoever, it just would not work out for them. So they've just got to find their niche. If people have kids, integrate your kids into it. Some people might not want to do that, but you've got to find your brand and why people know you. Like, so some people that have kids that do with sports, they probably know the kids more than what they do as them as the agent. I'm like, well, great, leverage your kids more. Because if you're happy to that, people know that. They're a face of your business and brand. If you've got pets, if you've got whatever it is, whatever industry you're in, I think that can be a big thing. So,
I.e. Drew Davies
Yep.
with his kids.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. 100%.
Mate, let's touch on the fact that you've only been in the industry for 7 years. You're 26 years old. You've supercharged your career quite quickly. You're now co-director of Place Kangaroo Point. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Now, why do you think you've been able to crack the code at such a young age and at such a quick pace?
I think at the end of the day, like when I started 7 years ago, it wasn't a young generation industry whatsoever. There was a lot of old, dinosaurs, I call them, a lot of old people in the industry that have just been doing it for a very, very long time. They're like, the parents have got them into property or whatever it is. They've worked at a family friend's office. Like that was the demographics. And I think you just got to have a why and a drive, because I think for me, a lot of people said I was too young to do real estate. And like I was actually going to do a Bachelor of Design when I got out of school. And I was going to do it. And I said, you know what, stuff this. I don't want to spend 4 years of my life going to university for a degree for people to tell me how to be creative. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense. So from that point, I was like, well, I want to prove a point. And even friends and family just started saying, you're too young to sell real estate. And I said, well, do you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm actually going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's been a massive driver for me. But I also think, like, if you don't have that direction and pathway to get there, then it's very hard to probably excel to where you want to be. And I think that pathway, you've just got to start from a why, I think. So
it sounds like your why was proving others wrong. Was there any other drivers for you in getting to where you were?
I think it was just, again, I just wanted to be, I think my biggest issue was always my age. Everyone's like, you're too young and all that sort of stuff. But like, I've always had one clear goal. I think when I was 19, I set 42 goals for myself, and I hit 41 of them.
42?
Yep. So I hit 40.
What was the one you didn't hit?
Buy a second property before I was 25. But I bought into a business, so yeah.
So you had a lot of clarity at a young age about what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah. And it's also because I'm not from Brisbane. So I came from a small coastal town with like 20 to 30,000 people. And like, if you stay there, you're there your whole life. You're not going to go far, in my opinion.
Can you tell the Lee Woodward story that we were talking about off camera that Daniel also didn't hear?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, well, so I initially, when I first started, well, actually, I didn't tell you the story of how I started in real estate, but when a lot of people told me I couldn't do it, I just went around to 32 agencies in Yeppoon and Rockhampton and basically asked for a job. And every single one of them said no. And it was about 6 o'clock on a Wednesday or something, I think it was. And there was this last place called O'Reilly's Real Estate, which is like a very small boutique agency. He just owned it for years. And he said, oh, look, we're not looking for anyone now, but I love how energetic you are. And it's also quite funny because I was like, it's 6 o'clock. I'm wasting my time. Everyone else has said no. I'm already deflated. So what else can I do? I'm like, I'm just going to get rejected again. And I think for some reason I just hit like this wall and it's just like, no, you're here now. You need to go in. And if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't be in real estate. So I went in there and then asked for a job, but he said, no, call me back in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, I'll call you back in 2 weeks. Called him back in 2 weeks. He said, no, my son's still not moving to Brisbane. Call me back in another 2 weeks. I said, look, can I just do some work experience, see if I actually like it? He said, great, come in. And then basically when I went into the office, I was there for about a week. And he's like, oh shit, you're very hungry and young. And basically just learnt off him. And then about a week later, he's like, I want to get you to go to a Lee Woodward conference. And I said, oh, that would be amazing. So we went to Brisbane, couldn't afford flights, so I drove to Brisbane, which is 14 hours. Oh, sorry, not 14 hours, about 11 hours from Yeppoon, and did the complete salesperson course. Met Lee Woodward, introduced myself to him. He made me stand up in the crowd at the whole thing at the conference because I was 17 at the time, and next week was my 18th birthday.
Wow.
So, and then he made me stand up. He said, look at this, the youngest person we've ever had at this conference. And then Lee's like, I actually want to coach you for free. So I ended up getting some free coaching with Lee and ended up paying him. Well, the boss ended up paying him at the time. And then the week later, I sat my real estate license literally on my 18th birthday. There's I'll find the photo. I've got a photo of me at like complete property training with like, they gave me a birthday cake while we're doing the course. So I actually sat my real estate course on my 18th birthday. And then by the time I got back, the owner at the time said, okay, I've got a job for you then. And then I started there for 6 months. And then after 6 months, then went to reach out to Lee. And I said, look, I poured on like probably 2 listings, but it's just a very slow market. Not much going on in town. I'm like, I want to get out of here. It's really boring. And he said, well, where do you want to go? Sydney, Sunny Coast, or Brisbane? I was like, well, Sydney's too expensive. I can't afford it. I've probably been there like once as a kid, so I know nothing about it. Sunny Coast would be cool because it's very coastal, what I was used to. And I was like, but I don't know anyone in Sunshine Coast. And Brisbane, I had family support there. So I was like, well, I might have a look at Brisbane. And next week got offered 4 jobs in Brisbane and then moved to Brisbane and started at Place. And then I was 18 at the time and had $240 or something to my name. So, yeah.
$240 to your name, and then your bosses leave overseas.
Yeah.
Yep. Then what happened?
Yeah, so after, I was at an office for about a year, and then I met Simon and Courtney, and it was actually, I'll get into that story in a sec, but after meeting Simon and Courtney, there's a property in Ascot, which is like 15 million, and I wanted to target it, and it was like, I was 18 or 19 at the time, I think, and I just wanted to prove a point to everyone that like age has no barriers to success. It's your only limitations are those that you put up in your own mind, and that's one thing I've always just kept in my mind ever since a young age. And I was like, they were wanting 15 million at the time. I said, I just kept calling him consistently for literally about 6 months. And then until one day he said, all right, come have a look at it. And the office at the time I was at, they just did not do high end. So I reached out to Simon through Place. And I said, mate, I want some advice on this. He said, yeah, I'm happy to catch up. Caught up with him. We went to do a listing presentation at like 6 a.m. in the morning. I was in like a $20 Tarot Cash suit or something. And I was like shitting myself, like 6 a.m. in the morning, like shaking. I'm like, I'm so nervous. Barely
You
even.
look 12 too.
Bro, I literally looked 12, like no beard, nothing. Like, thank God for that. But, and even out of that, like we didn't get the business and we pitched like $145,000 marketing campaign for it. And I'm like, the biggest one I did was like 3,000 or something. So going from like that to seeing how Simon performs, I'm like, well, that's somewhere I want to be. And then a week after I caught up with him and he said, I feel like I work for you one day, Simon. He said, no, you work with me. I said, yeah, whatever. And then next week he caught up and offered me a job. So the rest was history. And then 3 weeks into working with Simon and Courtney and the team at Kangaroo Point, they went overseas for 3 weeks. So 3 weeks in, they're like, all right, we're going overseas. Here's my phone. I was like, holy shit, like I've got this guy's phone and they've got like a lot of stock and high-end clients and all this sort of stuff. And that was a massive moment because it was either sink or swim. And during that time, I sold one for 1.9, 4 million, listed one for 4.2 and sold one for 610 or something. And I even remember that. I'm like, the one that sold for even 4 million, he said they're not going to buy it because they bought something else off him off the plane, which was literally next door. And I said, no, I actually think they're going to buy it. And he said, mate, they're just coming through to look. And I said, all right, whatever. And then the day before he gets back on the flight, I sell it. And I said, mate, it's sold for 4 million cash, uncode, done. He said, who sold it? Who bought it? I said, the same buyers that you said weren't going to buy it. And he's like, oh, shit, okay. So that was like a massive turning point, I think, for my career. And again, I think I was 19 at the time. Like even the old photo I saw, I was like just smiling, like grinning like a 12-year-old, got no beard. And then I literally just leveraged hard off that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
How have you been able to combat that age? Look, you're young, but you probably look younger than what you are though too. So how have you been able to combat that in listing presentations?
I think like now it's fine, but I think back then the biggest thing is like I use your, I guess, your negatives to your strength. So everyone's always going to have a negative. If someone just has a kid, they're like, oh, they're just going to have a kid. They can't manage your campaign. Use that as an advantage. You're too young to sell your real estate. Use that as an advantage. So for me, I was like, okay, well, what's my biggest disadvantage is my age, the experience. So use that as an advantage so people feel okay and comfortable with it. So my pitch used to be like, okay, well, end of the day, to be honest, like I've got no wife, I've got no kids, I've got no mortgage to pay, I've got no pets. The only thing I have to worry about is my Korean clients right now. And I can guarantee that I'm going to overwork your campaign like no one else has. I said, do me a favour, call me at 12 o'clock tonight and see which agent answers. Because if a buyer calls and if a buyer inquires at 10 o'clock, I'm going to call them. And there was a client that actually did that once. It was like
Really?
a $410,000 apartment in Kangaroo Point. I think his name was Peter. And he's like, I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, yeah, we'll leave it with me. And I could see a grin in his face. I was like, fuck, I think he's going to call me, which is fine. And then I get a call at like just after 12. And I said, hey, Peter, how you going? He's like, oh, good, Mike. I'm surprised you answered. I said, oh, did the other guy answer? He said, no. I said, do you want me to come over and sign the paperwork now or in the morning? He said, come over in the morning. I said, great. So like I used to always use my age as an advantage and a disadvantage. So whatever anyone's, weakness is, just use it as your advantage. So the competitor's always going to flip it on you, but you're like, okay, well, great. The reason it's not a disadvantage is because of this. So.
You've got a really, really great mindset about a lot of things, just the way that you think. I'm just wondering, where did this come from? Was this fostered through parents? Was this fostered through self-development, reading books, podcasts, a combination of everything? What do you think it's been?
It's a good question. I think I don't know, I've come from a country town, so I feel like country people are a bit different to city people, in my opinion. But I also think it's weird, but I think it's actually one thing, it's like discipline and routine is one thing. It goes back to probably being a kid, because I've got a single mum and 3 sisters, right? So I was like the only man, the man in the house. I had to look after 10 acres of property and all that sort of stuff. So it's a big role for me as a kid to do that. But even for them, I think just little things like a chore. We used to have a chore chart. So you're not allowed to get a reward until you do something. And I've always had that same mindset as a kid. Is like, okay, if I want to go do something, I can't do it until this is completed. Same with calls. I'm like, I can't go home, especially younger. I can't go home until I cannot go home on a negative. Someone tells me to piss off on a phone, great, find someone else that will say yes and get you through the door, and then you can go home. So that was probably one big thing. But to be honest, Simon's probably been a massive help with that. I think just probably at a younger age, he's probably seen what he's gone through as an agent and just probably learnt from his mistakes, I think, which is probably a big thing. But it's also, I think, he's probably changed a lot of how I've thought, not just short term, but long term, and not just about real estate, but also setting up wealth and all that sort of stuff for yourself long term. And that's probably been a massive thing. But at the same time, like I don't read because I got ADHD. I read one page and I go to the next page. I'm like, what did I just read? I cannot remember what I just read. So mine would more be like podcasts and listening to books and all that sort of stuff, audio books. But yeah, I don't know. I love to absorb knowledge, to be honest. And if I don't like something, I'll just change it. So
you talked a bit about discipline and routine. What were the disciplines and routines you held on the coming up, and then what you hold now?
Yep. My biggest thing was actually just going back to, like, we have a lot of Josh Vegan training, so I think it's good to get different coaches.
JP's a beast.
Yeah. And, his was just simple, 3 appointments a day. Like, I'd always just say to me, 3 appointments a day keeps the boogeyman away. Like, it was literally just just a random thing I'd always thought of. And like that, I just kept that consistent. And it's also probably because I used to be a hardcore prospector a lot, like especially on the market calls, withdrawn, all this sort of stuff. Like, our job is to overcome objections, and if you can overcome the objections before they tell you what the objections are, well, what's the next objection? So it's like everyone, like all the calls, everyone say, I'm not thinking of selling. Great. If you tell them that beforehand, well, what are they going to say next? It's like always a game of chess, like I feel like. And, but yeah, I think younger, it's just been consistent, putting 2 hours aside each day for calls, but then also getting your preparation correctly done. Because if it's your preparation's not done, people just call for the sake of it, like call for a reason. That's what I think I was saying that to you guys earlier. It's like I hate it when people say, "Hey, I'm just calling to touch base." Don't touch my fucking base. Like, call for a reason. If you're going to talk about something, hey, I'm just calling about this. Fantastic. Get straight to the point. Don't waffle. And I think honestly, just keeping 3 appointments a day was probably the most consistent thing growing up. And then now, discipline and routine. Now I think it's sort of changed. I think back then it was a bit chaotic because it was also like I didn't have the best routine. I wasn't looking after my health. I was spending the money, going out drinking, doing all this sort of stuff, what every 20-year-old does. But basically, I just started to change a lot of that in the last probably 12, 18 months. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going into a new market. I want to start creating a lot of serious wealth and all that sort of stuff for myself. And if I'm not disciplined on myself and, getting up early and looking after my body, like I had bad gut issues for ages. So I think a lot of that discipline and routines change a lot, and you've got to be strict with it. To be honest, mine was just struggling to go to bed early because my brain would just be going like this constantly. So it's like new ideas, new listings. Oh, I haven't got back to this person. And I've got like pretty bad OCD too. So if you look at my phone, I will have 0 notifications before I go to bed. Every single night, I have to have 0 notifications.
Identical.
Yeah. I can't do it. Like, people have like 32,000 emails. I'm like, oh my God, give me your phone. I want to get rid of it. But I think like that's probably going back I know I've been that way for 7 years. It's hard for someone to change that now. But that's also like the response time has probably been a big thing going back to people at the same time. But having that same routine of like no notifications before I'm asleep. But I used to just struggle just going to bed a lot. Like, I would have 4 hours sleep a night.
That's something I've struggled with in the past. Actually, something that I've gotten a lot better with over the past month is sleeping. But in terms of ADHD, I've actually only just been diagnosed with it in the past couple of months. Never knew I had it. I thought I had it, but I never knew. And I've only just started to understand it. When did you find out you had ADHD?
Thing is, I haven't. I don't need, like, and there's so many people self-diagnose themselves, but like, I know I've got ADHD, and like even the doctors and stuff said, go get tested, we think you do, and all this sort of stuff. I said, well, it's not going to change me. I don't want to take medication for it.
No.
Like, I've tried going, like, they've given me medication for it for like 2 weeks, and I was like staring at a wall. I'm like, I'm not myself. I'm like, yeah, it made it easier to think, but I'm like, I'm not creative then. And if it wasn't for me being, that way, I don't think I'll be the same person.
How have you dealt with it? And not dealt with it, but how have you learned how to manage your ADHD to a point where it's a positive, not a negative?
Writing things down. Because like, especially my brain going constantly, like if you look in my notes section, like I have got like every conversation I had with owners on the phone to someone written in there. If there's tasks I need to do, I'll write it in there. But I'm still like a to-do list, all that sort of stuff, because it's also satisfaction. Like when you actually tick it off the list, you're like, great, I'm achieving something. I can keep moving forward. And I think that's probably helped a lot of that. But one thing, to be honest, that helped me switch my mind off, and I've only probably discovered this year, like it's taken me a while to do this, and that's help with like my partner now. She's amazing because she's in that industry. But I think the biggest thing is actually having a routine before you get up and when you go to bed, and being really strict with that has like changed my mentality, has changed my energy levels, like everything.
What is that routine?
Jinx, yeah. No, the biggest thing now is like, well, when I go to bed, I actually listen to sleep music or meditation, because I found it very hard to meditate, to be honest. But even just having sleep music before I go to bed, and actually I try not to be on my phone before bed, because that just affected me. And when I'm on my phone, I'm like, oh, I've got this idea and I'll think about doing this. And I'm like, oh, I'll message this client for tomorrow. And I like message people like 12 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I don't care if they get annoyed. I'm like, well, they get my message in the morning. And then in the morning now, like I've got a cold plunge and a sauna and stuff at home. So like I'm very routine focused, getting up early in the morning and stuff.
So what time are you getting to sleep? What time are you waking up? And then what does that morning routine look like before you get to work?
Yep. Sometimes it's still hard to commit to it, to be honest. Like I'm not as disciplined as, some other people. But I think nighttime I try to get to bed 10:30ish or 10ish, and I find it hard sometimes. Mornings I try to get up at like 5:55, just a random time. 5:55, yeah. Or it might go into like early 6 a.m.ish. So, and then I'll try to get up, do a workout at home. Or if I don't have enough time, if I've like slept in like half an hour after, I'll still always be sauna, cold plunge, 4 eggs on toast and make my coffee, and off I go.
When you get to the office, are you structuring your day, or are you just kind of ripping in?
A bit of both. Like three days. Every day is hard. Like Monday's always buy, follow up, all that sort of stuff. Tuesdays we got a lot of team meetings, so I run a lot of the team meetings. But either 3 days a week we do DDMs, which is daily directions meetings, so with the team, so we know what we're working on. So, we might follow up on Monday, okay, great, what offers have we got, what people do we need to follow up, what, admin stuff do we need to, process from the weekend, and that's Danny and my team doing that. Or basically we just structure the week. Wednesday, what's our pipeline looking like? Friday, what's our, GCI looking like and tracking for the week and all that sort of stuff.
Is that an Oura ring?
It is, yep.
So you've got a lot of AI tech happening everywhere.
Yep.
Talk about that. Can we delve into that a little bit? About the ring, about the glasses?
Yep. I love tech. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a way of the future. And same with social media and all that sort of stuff. It all correlates together. Like this Oura ring, that's something, again, my partner Emily's got me onto. And she's really fit and healthy and all that sort of stuff. And like that's helps me track, again, like everything, sleep, steps. It gives you like a readiness score. So it bases it off like your activity, how much you're walking for your age. Like it's really, really good. But my biggest thing out of that is sleep, because it monitors my sleep. And that tells me each day, I'm like, I feel just like ruined. Bless you. I feel like ruined because I'm just so tired. But then I might get like 1.5 hours deep sleep a night. Like that was my issue, is just always getting like they might say I slept for 6 hours, but I'll get like 1.5 hours deep sleep, and the rest I'm up and like it's all over the shop. So,
what about the glasses?
The glasses is a new addition. No, but there's the glasses that I've got now. It's pretty crazy because it's all through artificial intelligence. So it's actually got text messages, notifications. You can have maps in there and all that sort of stuff. But the reason I bought it actually translates to people. So if there's a lot of clients, like Chinese clients I deal with a lot, I can actually understand what they're saying. So bit of
have you ever caught any? I know you've only got them recently, but yeah. Have you ever caught anyone out talking behind your back?
Not yet. I'm intrigued to see. I'm intrigued to see them. So no, I've only had them for a couple of days, so I'm intrigued to see how they go.
It's like wearing Iron Man glasses.
Yeah, literally.
That's cool. In terms of sleep, have you taken like any supplements like melatonin or anything to help you sleep better?
It's kind of weird because I have tried melatonin a bit, but I am a bit cautious with sleeping tablets and stuff, because like one of my best mates a while ago actually got diagnosed with bipolar from sleeping tablets.
Jeez.
And then he went through like a schizophrenic stage, and I used to live with him like 4 years ago. So it was actually like, it was very tough on him, but I'm like, it was very hard on me to like care for that too. So I've actually been like very hesitant from that to sort of do anything. But the things I'm trying out now is like I need to try like melatonin or different teas and all that sort of stuff. So
The naturals.
Yeah, the natural stuff. Yeah. But I feel like meditation, to be honest, has actually helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Trying to sleep. So it's allowing your body to switch off.
When did you start meditation, and how's your journey been like while you've been learning?
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah, I've only started it probably in the last couple of months. So at the start of the year, we did like a challenge, not like, people do like the 75 hard challenge. I'm like, look, that's not realistic. Going to gym 2 days a week, I can't commit to that. So there's about 12 of us from the office that did it. I said, guys, I need help. I need accountability to do it. And like I didn't drink for like 85 days or something it was, which is amazing. And like I don't really drink a lot anyway, but it was also just the mentality of going through that stage of like learning each morning. So you break it up in the first hour of your day. You're like 20 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of learning, and then 20 minutes of like meditation or something. And that really started to set my day. But then it's everyone's different. Like I think meditation towards at night, that just allowed me to actually switch off and not wake up during the night, because it's actually allowing my brain and my body to relax. So,
Man, I love meditation. For me, it's been a big part of finding space for yourself. Something that I'm curious about is you've got these tools in the toolbox that are now helping you be more grounded to be a better agent. What actually makes you, Michael, a good agent?
it's a good question. I think just being yourself. Like honestly, that's always been something that I've always just been passionate of, is just be yourself, and people want to be around you. And that's going back to like, don't be an agent, just be a human being. And I think just having that approach, and regardless if it's, $100,000 studio apartment that I sold, or if it's $12.5 million house on the river, I was myself. And I think by doing that, people will learn to, and I've always been a big believer, just build as much rapport as you can and ask questions. And like a lot of my listing presentations are not really real estate, they're just talking about them and their why. And then, you need to upsell it. You upsell it at the right time. But at the same time, I think even, going into that $12.5 million property I sold on the river, that was 2 years ago. So it was 24 at the time. And it was a bit of a tough market for the high end. But for the same time, for something at that high caliber, the first thing I said to the owners when I walked into the house, I was wearing like a green suit, which looked like a picnic rug. And she's like, "Oh, Michael, I love your suit." I was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's good, because if I want to go on a date later tonight, I'll take it off and I'll just use it as a picnic rug." And then it broke the ice. So like a big thing is like just breaking the ice can, see a relationship go far, far greater than probably anything else, because they're just, not being an agent and just being yourself has always just been a massive part of my life and business, to be honest.
How did you get in the door of that property?
Instagram. Yeah. I've just noticed it's really funny, because we've actually got a video of this when I used to vlog, I think when I was 22, and there was like a project I was selling out. These like $650,000 apartments. And then we always drive past, it's like this black house, this black Gucci house that everyone knows. And I was like, there was a video of me doing a vlog with my videographer saying, I'm actually going to sell that house one day. And I kid you not, we found that footage when we sold it and put that into the sold reel. So it's quite funny. It was just like, a big believer in manifestation, to be honest. And like even a week before I went to that listing prezzo, I just started like manifesting it, which is really weird. Like some people might not believe in it, but I actually believe in it. Whatever you put out in the universe, you're going to get. And I was like, I'm actually going to sell that one day. And I've got a feeling I'm actually going there pretty soon. So I reached out to the builder, who I had no idea who the builder is. And I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, mate, how are they going with the property?" Because he put up a photo on his Instagram story. And he said, "They're about to take it off the market." It was on the market for about 2 years with another agent. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm glad they listened to me." The guy, like, he had 4 people through. He wasn't doing the good job. And I said, "I'm surprised I haven't sold it." And I said, out of curiosity, what has he said about the buyers? Because 2 of my clients actually went through there. And then he called me and I spoke to him. I said, "Yeah, one of them, who's one of my top clients, who's a billionaire, he said that, they're interested." And I'm like, "They're not interested. It's too small for them." So I said, "Why they keep dragging onto something that's not true?" Then anyway, he's like, "All right, I'll call the owner." So he called the owner and he said, "Okay, great. He's going to call you in 2 minutes." I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, I didn't even know the builder. He put me in contact with these people. And then I just spoke to him. He said, "Yeah, let's catch up next week." And then ended up catching up with him and, was there for like an hour and, up against every objection. The previous agent was offering 1.9% commission. all this sort of stuff. And then, I was pitching this whole marketing campaign that no one has pitched before about a social front and actually creating a concept around a property that no one has seen before. And I was up against big agents that some of them you've had on your podcast, but I was up against a lot of high-end agents that do that day in, day out. And I'm like, this is my highest one. My previous one was like 4.2 million or something.
Wow.
So it was a big change. And I think a week later they called me. It was Valentine's Day. I was at Noosa. And I said, all right, we've got to go back. And he said, we're going to Italy tomorrow. Can you come? We'll go ahead with you. I was like, oh, shit. All right. Drove all the way back from Noosa and signed up that night. Then the next 2 days, we had the content team out there. And we were there filming for like 16 hours.
16?
Yep.
So what was the strategy of selling that property? Can you run us through it?
Yeah, it was just, we wanted to create a concept around, a story around a house that no one's seen. And I think we wanted to get as much hype as we can. So we ended up getting 7 news articles. So we teed up 7 news, all this sort of stuff. And we worked out 2 strategies, because we worked out the first one was, let's do a soft launch, because they've already spent a lot of money in marketing. So they ended up spending 40-something thousand. And I said, well, you're going to have to spend a similar amount, if not more, because you haven't spent that much. And at that time, I ended up spending a bit of money of my own to the videographer, because they were growing their business too. And they said, well, you know what, let's actually do it. And we spent like $7,000 for a marketing campaign for a $12.5 million house, which should have been 40 to 50, 60. And we did a 2-stage campaign. I said, if it doesn't work in 4 weeks, we're going to change it and we're going to go to auction. And I'm like, this is ballsy, because no one's sold anything at auction over 10 million in Brisbane before. And in 4 weeks come, we had a few people through. I said, guys, we need to create competition, put an end date on there. And I'm not really a big auction agent, to be honest, but I auctioned the properties I feel like that are very different and unique. And even for that, we ended up taking it to auction, open it up and all that sort of stuff. And they were overseas at the time, so we had free reign. We had 197 people through the property. And like, not everyone was buying it, but it was great leveraging. 187 people through the property. On the auction night, we had 147 people, 9 registered bidders. The bidding started off at 8 million, it got to 11.5. And the Brisbane record for that at the time for an auction was like 8.4 million. So we got bidding up to 11.5 million. And there's this 24-year-old that has just done this massive campaign around a property that, like, the house was packed. We had 3 security guards throughout the house. The owners were shitting themselves. Like, who are these people? I said, hey, it's all good. If you spoke to me on that day, I wouldn't have said hello to you unless you were a buyer. Hey, Michael, how are you? Good. Move past, my game faces on. And then even getting the bidding to 11.5, we didn't sell it. But then 2 weeks after, if we didn't do that, they put belief out in that marketplace and sold it 2 weeks later for 12.5 million.
Wow.
And that was in like 88 days, when the average for properties over 10 million were 376 days or something at the time. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And that just put a lot of, put me on the map, I think, as well. Because I was doing 96 to 100 property transactions a year, but that was in just turnover apartments. But going into the higher end, I dabbled in a few, but I was like, that's how I want to go, and just leverage hard. And that same builder, I've sold about 5 for him, and they just kept leveraging all off that network. So
it sounds like how you got in was just reaching out on social media, having a crack, essentially.
Yep.
Once you got the opportunity, it was about thinking outside the box. You obviously leverage your creativity and social media to create a campaign, which you then got this amazing result and then leverage the success.
Yeah. It's always been about leveraging for me, and people don't do that enough, in my opinion. And it's also, and when you're going back to the creativity side, this is one thing I always say to people is like, people laugh at me because I'm different, but I laugh at them because they're all the same.
How do you stay unique? This is actually a viewer question, but how do you stay unique as an agent on social media?
You got to keep changing, because if you don't, everyone's going to copy you.
Yeah.
So I think staying unique, you've got to work out what works well for you. Like, there's so many funny videos out there that people, I'm like, some of them do well, and I'll reach them, I'm like, hey, this is amazing. Or, some people copy my videos, and I'm like, people tag me in it. I'm like, cool, that's fine. And I'll message them like, hey, well done. Like, I'm happy for you to actually think outside the box and do something you're not comfortable with doing. But staying unique is, you've got to understand what your brand is. And I think for mine is always, luxury, humour, and being myself. That's probably the 3 things. Or in other terms, it's bold, innovative, and creative. So there's, you've got to find out what your uniqueness is. And, the content that we're doing, other people are catching up to it now. So it's like, well, what's next? So like, we're doing big collabs with companies on properties and that sort of stuff. It's about collaboration, like, some brand new properties, because that's what a lot of the things that I do, the properties I sell, is we do collaborations with massive clothing brands that have 1.6 million followers. As a developer, I'm like, hey guys, well, I can give you access to all this. They can come and shoot you home. They get a free shoot for the day, but they're posting it on their social. They're growing your brand. They're growing my brand at the same time. So it's not also about, sometimes my pitch to people is about listing the property and selling it. I'm like, we can do that. We've got the strategy. We know how to do it. But the importance for you guys is building your developer brand so you're going to get more reach and more clients as well. And that's something I can offer that no one else can.
It's a win-win-win.
Correct. Yeah. But yeah, going back to uniqueness, I think just find what works well for you and just do it. Stay in your lane and focus on that, and don't copy what, you can copy what people do. If it works out for you, great. But I think you just need to find out what works well.
Another viewer question we've had come through is, how much has social media contributed to your listing and selling career? Do you think it's been the main push for you? Like, do you think that's brought in the most amount of business for you? And was that straight from the start, or was that at the end?
Yep, that's a good question. More towards the end, to be honest. But this is what I was saying earlier. It doesn't matter about how many followers you've got. It's about how you utilise your network. Like now, to be honest, my most listings I get is from circle of influence of people, not so much social media. I still get a fair bit from social. But at the same time, I think that's been a massive part of my career, and even earlier on too, is because people started seeing that. And one thing I did, even when I had like 5, 6, 7,000 followers or whatever it was, we used to do like the monthly recaps, but just being smart on what you're doing. Like, instead of like, if I had a shit month, it's a rolling tally from January, and I'll put that in the bio. So people might see like $76 million sold, and I'm like, yeah, but that's a rolling tally from January, and it's like in, October or something. So people assume, it's a perception thing, is they assume that you've done 76 million in 1 month. I'm like, no, if you read the bio, it actually says from Jan till October. So that's something we did very well. And that was like, what I talk about, we as my content team, Pixel. But we just leveraged that really hard. So every single month we did the monthly recaps. We used to do like a monthly vlog, and we're like, people don't do vlogs anymore. Like, it's sort of coming back again. And we understood the algorithms and all that sort of stuff and how social media worked. So
how much money do you spend now on your social brand and your social media?
Not as much as I used to. And the reason why is because we just pitch more for video and pitch the marketing ideas to the vendors so they pay for it. So it's been smart, but it's also like...
all about leverage.
Correct. Again, leverage. So I can leverage property campaigns because we might, I'll pitch a, $5,000 marketing, $5,000 video campaign or something for a property. And then we get so much video content out of that. So we just keep reproducing that. So
what about with personal branding, let's say, it doesn't have to do with a property. Like, I've seen you overseas doing videos.
Yep.
Is that to do with, is that brand deals? Is that yourself paying for your own brand awareness? Like, what happened?
A lot of that, like a lot of the ones overseas, like I've did one, I was in like Bali and Dubai, and I've done one in New York, and all this, that's just, again, leveraging. It's just reaching out to other agents or people. I'm like, hey, I'm not paying for it. They're not paying for it. It's just like, well, there's an advantage for you to get more reach from my network, but it's also cross collaboration. Like we had, we caught up with Ryan Serhant a few times, and like his media team that he's got is insane. His bottle level of his office, he's got like 32 staff members or 28 or something. That is all just content. So the whole bottom room is content.
So did you go to the office?
Yep. Did a full tour, caught up with him. And then even one of his agents, Maddie, who's really big on TikTok, she came and stayed with us in Brisbane and did some videos with us.
And was that just DMing him?
Yep.
You just DM'd him?
Well, it was also DMing him, but it was also, we had the relationship through Maddie. I'm like, if we can't get to him, well, we're going to reach out to other people. And it was also, I had a client that had a property in Germany to sell for like 20 million euros or something. Like a big castle, and he asked if I can go sell it in Frankfurt. I said, yeah, bloody oath I can. We'll go film and content and do all this sort of stuff, but we need other agents. So that's in the works for the next couple of years. So there's like, I reached out to him initially about that, and then when I caught up with him, I gave him the brochure. He's like, oh, great. And the first thing he said, what's that? I said, great. And he said, you're the guy who messaged me, Bacon, isn't it? I said, yep. So you never know. And that's, it's got nothing to do with following. It's about if you come with people for pitching it and, a service to them that they're interested in, they're going to do it.
Collaboration's so key. Like,
yeah,
I remember when we first started the podcast, we had no following.
Yeah.
But you just start by starting with one person that then leapfrogs to the next, and next thing you know,
here with you.
Yeah. But it's also at the same time, right? Like that's how I saw the podcast, and I love what you guys are doing because it's actually really good content. But it's just the same time, I'm like, you guys have grown from here to here through repetition and also good quality content. And like that's all it is. And it's also like I use this exercise. I do this to the staff in the office too. Is like it's easy to come up with a video concept. Everyone's like, oh, it's too hard. Like I do cheap apartments. I can't come up with a concept, or you do the luxury stuff. It's easier. I said it's all the same. I said you can come up, and I would put up photos of anything, right? So even if you think of like, okay, there's a house in Fiji on the beach. What are some ideas that come to your mind? Like a canoe, fishing, beach, snorkeling, coconuts. There's your video.
Yeah.
Like that's how easy it is. You think about it. Yeah, we're on the river. Connectivity to the river. Great. You've got location. You can see probably people canoeing, a boat. Like so, there's automatically things that come to mind. You're like, well, there's your video concept, and start with it. So it's like a tiny apartment. Great. Add some humor in there. Do a video with Uber Eats. Like this is the thing. It's like people just think that it's like because they don't sell the high end stuff, you can't do video. I'm like, it's a load of crap. I said you can leverage anything. And I said it's that easy. You just need to think about, okay, well, what are the demographics? If you're in an apartment, what is it? Location. Talk about the location. There's your video concept. Boom, move on. So it's very easy to do it. People just think it's too hard. Yeah.
Like if I was an agent selling in a particular suburb, I would go and interview all the business owners in the local area.
Yep.
Podcast, bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
There's your.
But even do like giveaways and different. Like there's two things because there's a few areas I'm focused on now, but there's a few things that I'm in the works of doing. Like I'm doing a giveaway. This podcast probably won't come out, so hopefully no one steals my idea in time for Christmas, but that's all right. Like I'm doing a giveaway for Christmas, and the concept is I'm giving away 2 iPads, and basically we're just geographically targeting 2 postcodes, and basically all they have to do is film their kids doing a walkthrough pretending they're Michael Bacon.
That's so smart.
And whoever does like the best video, like they win an iPad. So they're getting the kids involved. So they post and tag it and they send it to us, and then with the Pixel we'll just do a collaboration of all the videos. They'll collate it together and basically come up with a cool concept at the end.
It's like the modern day colouring in at school.
100%.
You need to do that. Yeah.
So it's just like cool. I'll be like, hi, I'm Michael Bacon, blah, blah, blah. Like whatever the kids might be doing. But then like 1, it's the saying your name. 2, the parents love it because their kids are getting involved. 3, the kids love it because they can win an iPad, depending if the parents give it to or not. And 4, it's community. And like another thing that I'm trying to sort this out now is actually get Santa Claus into a property in the area that I'm selling a lot of new built homes in. Like, great, come along for free Santa photos. How many people pay for Santa each year? So there's like a lot of ideas that you can think of. Just do it. So
I love that. That's really cool.
So I'm actually looking for Santa. So if you guys want to dress up as Santa while you're here, that'd be good.
Yeah. Give it a crack.
Yeah.
Mate, it's very inspiring what the way that your mind works, the way that your mind ticks, and your growth pattern. I just wonder how you're able to actually manage your time, because it's obviously quite time consuming to do video content, to create these ideas and do prospecting and listing and selling and everything all at the same time. And to collaborate with big brands, it doesn't take a minute.
Yeah.
Take some time. How have you managed your time?
It's a good question. It's always the hardest question. No, I think with time management, it's really, to be honest, it is hard, but I sort of limit the stock that I've got coming on, because otherwise I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my clients. And that's something that I do. Like, some people say, well, that's stupid, Mike. I'm like, yeah, but it works for me. Like, I don't want to have 50 listings and an open home. I want to actually be able to service them. So I might have like a calendar of timelines when places are going to be ready, and I don't rush taking properties to the market. By doing that, it allows me to have more time to do that and actually focus on selling the properties correctly. And like this, even though I've got a team, a lot of the inspections I'm at. So I don't and people offer different things. They've got big teams, I understand it, but I've got a team of 3. And at the same time, like I'm more about, if people are hiring me, they want me. And yes, it's hard to scale, but at the same time, like, it works well for me and it's still growing. So I think that's easier, and then they can leverage into something else. So with the apartment space, Chris, who works in my team, he's going out on his own now, and he'll basically take over all that apartment space that I used to do. So it's still within the business. And then, I've got Dan who's joining my team in the new year, which will be heavily focused on the higher end new builds because he's suited to that. And I think with that space, going back to the time question, is it's very hard to manage it. And like, to be honest, it has been tough after, buying into the business recently and managing between being an agent and also being, obviously a partner within a business now. Like, it is a lot of time.
And not just one business, silent partner in another business and whatnot too.
Yep.
You're really managing a lot of stuff at the same time.
Yep.
I wonder, do you work 5, 6 or 7 days, and how much time are you taking for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest, like I would work any day. It's not as bad as I used to work like 80 odd hours a week. But now, because I'm, getting older now, I feel like I'm 40, but I'm only 26. But anyway, I think that over the last few years, it's, I've just been a workhorse, and I'm like, it's not sustainable for me. It's not sustainable for my health. I had all these gut health issues and all this sort of stuff. I was eating shit food. So I was working 80 odd hours a week, and I was like, I just can't do that anymore. So for me now, to be honest, I probably work like 6 days, potentially. Like, it just varies. Mondays, I try to take it as a me day. Sundays, I might do that with, me and my partner and spend quality time together, because that's important as well. But again, if something comes up, I'll still work on a Sunday if I need to. So it's hard to manage it all, but I think it's also just delegating different times to different areas is a big thing. And I think it has been a challenge of mine of obviously, being a part of a business now, because, I'm not responsible for 3 people. There's 32 people I'm responsible for now too, which has been a big step. But at the same time, if you've just got to get the structure right and, know the roles and responsibilities and all that sort of stuff. And then that's something that we've sorted out, like, honestly, in the last month. So it's a lot clearer on our vision and clearer on my time management. So
I remember when I was 26, which was only a couple of years ago, I was hiring my probably second assistant at the time, and it was quite daunting. And that was 2 staff members. You've got 32 that you have to look after at the same age, which is wild. I wonder, how was it like for you to, I remember one of my first assistants was actually Daniel's cousin, who was 32 at the time.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Daniel. I'm like, oh, how was he?
No, he's his cousin. And he was a lot older than me. And I remember when he started, I actually struggled mentally to go, is this guy going to listen? And he obviously did. He was amazing. He's actually a great, great guy. But I always had this idea in my head, are these guys going to actually listen to me because of my age? Do you feel like that? Did you ever feel like that?
It does cross my mind, but because I've been within the business for 7 years or something, it's easy to get credibility. And I think, like, because people have seen what I've done and the journey I've gone on, I think there's a level of respect there now that age doesn't trump it. Yeah. And I think also, like, going, even managing from when I put on my first EA, and I think a lot of people always go for an assistant first or an associate, which I'm always a big believer of. You need to get the structure right before you get someone to do your work, because they're like, oh, we need someone to leverage more. I'm like, well, you don't. If you're leveraging, just don't stop it and just get someone to manage your time better. So I put on an EA that a co-agent after. But even now, to managing, more staff, again, it is a struggle, because there's a lot more things that you got to think about. It's not about yourself and your business. It's also about the longer term vision of the office and the growth that we want to do in recruitment and all this sort of stuff. But I think with that perspective is you've got to have the right team and the right people on your bus. So if you don't have the right people on the bus, get them off the bus. But if they're on the bus, well, what's their roles and responsibilities? So even from a leadership perspective now, we've got, Matt Smolden, who's our coach. So he's our coach for the office, and he comes in once a week and helps manage a lot of the staff as well, which is a big weight off our shoulders. But again, he knows it better than anyone else. So, he helps me in my business now too, which is great. But it's getting the right people in. I might help with a lot of the growth and innovative sides to the business and recruitment. The day-to-day stuff, we've got the operations manager, Simon and Corny, the same scenario. So we get very clear on your roles and responsibilities now. But I think when we first jumped in, I'm like, oh, I want to do everything and do this. I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, but now you've just taken a step back from your own business, which is also affecting the fees that you're doing. So you've just got to get the right team structure right. And then I think it's a lot easier to manage it. And it probably took us about 3 months to actually get it right now. So
what's your vision at the moment?
It's a massive one. So
what would you like to achieve?
Yeah, my biggest vision, I think, well, there's 2 things. I think there's vision for the office and where we want to go, and vision for myself. Vision for myself is actually just to create a lot of wealth for me and my family.
When you say a lot of wealth, what does that look like?
So it would just be, again, like I'm partner in 2 different other businesses as well. So, and more of a silent partner. I don't do a lot of work in that avenue, but it's more of a long-term investment. Now it's just getting a lot more properties under our belt. And for me and my partner, Emily, we've got a long-term vision of if you want to have kids in 3 years or something, then we want to be set up financially before we do that. And to be honest, that's been my number one goal in life. Even when I was younger, I wanted to be financially fit before I was 25. And then basically, because in the event if I meet someone, then I want to be able to financially support the kid that we have. And I've always wanted to be a dad, so that's always been a big driver for me in the next, they'll probably be 3 to 4 years. But I think it's also just getting everything set up right correctly before then, which is a big thing. But then from an office standpoint, I think where we want to go with an office front is the same time as like, well, we're going to have the best office in Australia, then, and it's not being arrogant, but I think we do because we believe in it. And the vision that we've got, we want to have the best people in our team in the office. And if they're not, we're going to get rid of them.
In case no one has actually seen the video on your Instagram about the new office, can you talk about your new office that's about to be released?
So we were supposed to be filming there now. But
we're going to have to be back next year, don't worry.
We'll come back next year, but it's pretty amazing. So we've got 3 levels. So downstairs, we've got like big boardrooms and all that sort of stuff. We've got a hidden wine cellar. We were going to have a cafe downstairs, but we decided not to. But we've got like a little section. The middle level we've got like a $400,000 kitchen, which we got from one of our developers that we sold. So we use it as a display before the office.
400,000.
Yeah. So they're like the $10.5 million apartments that Simon and Courtney sold in our team. We use that as a display so we could keep the office, the setup that they'd put in there. So we've got all that, but we've got the whole wellness component there. So on the back side of it, because all this branding will probably come out by the time. So we've also, when you talk about branding, yes, we'll place Kangaroo Point, but no one knows this, not even our staff knows this. I'm telling you guys now, it's about the future branding of a business and a brand. So we've actually created another brand around it called 285 Club. So the address is 285 Shafton Avenue. So we've got this whole Carlisle style setup around the office, and it's called the 285 Club. So basically what that is, we've got 6-star techno gym in there. So we've got a techno gym, we've got sauna, cold plunge, steam room. We've got a golf simulator, which can be changed into a green screen room for content or podcasts or whatever it is. Then one space we're working with is putting a creche in, so for kids. So if people have kids, for clients or agents or whatever it is, we've got that. We've got the options with the kitchen we've got there. We're looking at getting a couple of chefs or a chef in to do some catering options. So this is more of a performance level. I think if people are performing, we're happy to do it. But like our vision with that is massive. And then like we got a brokerage firm on top, which we might even, a few years down the track, we might grow, but we don't want to have 100 staff members. We just want to have very high performers.
Do you have a desk there?
Mate, there's a few hot desks, so if you're welcome to come check it out. But I think it's been very exciting for Vision for me, Simon and Courtney for the last couple of years, and for them to create that space is pretty amazing. But I think also too, it's important for us, and it's like, well, what are our struggles? It's like, well, health, wellness, time. They've got a newborn kid, so how do we incorporate all this into work, or how do we help our agents or help people or staff that are coming into the business? Like, what's their biggest objections? Oh, it's too far for kids' school and I've got to go pick the kids up. Great. If we've got someone there to look after your kids, can you perform more? Yeah, we can. Great. Which also impacts their lives because, if their wife's working or if they're a stay-at-home mum or if, whatever the setup is, well, they're financially supporting that. And our office is supporting not only them, but their families. And that's important to us. And I also think the vision that we've got for that is like, again, the way that the world's going, the content stuff we're going to be doing is pretty crazy. So like there's a lot of CGI stuff that we're working on at the moment that is so expensive to do, but if we're going to have the facilities and the setup to do it, we can. But the whole concept around 285 Club is basically, it's nothing to do with real estate. So there's not going to be any branding on it. So you'll see all this come out into the new year when it's launched, but it's a whole collaboration. We've got, people do run clubs now. Great, we've got 285 Club collaboration with Fitstop or whatever it might need to be. And everyone's like, what's this 285 Club? Well, great, you can only get access to it if you join our office.
That's cool.
So, and that's a whole concept of what we're doing. And that's been a big vision of mine to come up with different creative ways of bringing people in. But it's also at the same time, like we don't want like dickheads in our office. Like it's someone, like we had a big fee writer recently that we were chatting to that was keen and we just told him no because the culture won't suit. And so many people just say, yeah, cool, it's all about the fees. But for us, it's about family, vision and long-term growth for not only us, but also our staff members. And I think that's a massive, massive vision that we've got. And I think by, looking after their health, their wellness, their well-being, all this sort of stuff, well, what's their excuse not to perform then?
I think Place Kangaroo Point, Manor Real Estate, where I work back in Sydney, there are some very similar key characteristics that we share in terms of family values, no dickhead policy. We've spoken to, so I head up the recruitment for Manor, and in terms of riders, we've knocked back big riders before too, because it's just a no dickhead policy. We don't want anyone ruining a culture where, I started in the company when we only had 6 or 7 staff. We've now got over 100, but you still feel that small family culture in a big office, which is very, very rare. And it feels like you guys are doing a very similar thing. Coming back to the recruitment piece, you said that obviously that's your role as well. How do you recruit?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just message a lot of people on Instagram because they know me. If I get a message from me, they're going to search who I am. And that's my business card. That's my portfolio. It's the same with clients. I send them my social media. I send them my contact card after my Instagram. And I can see if they're looking at my stuff. 9 times out of 10, they follow me. So then I don't have to pitch that side of it before I get in the business. The same with recruitment. And it's also interesting too, because a lot of the people that we're looking at recruiting, like we don't want to recruit a lot of people. We want a few more decent agents for now, and then we're happy with that. But I think from that, it's funny because a lot of people I used to compete with, and it's like the old saying of keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And it's like a lot of my competition, like some of them are potentially looking at coming over, and I used to compete against them all the time. But that's because there's a level of respect there, and I don't care if it's an agent. Someone calls me, I'll give them a price guide. I don't care. Yeah. And a lot of people are too protective of their own selves, I think. But coming from a recruitment perspective, I just think just understanding their why and what they're dissatisfied with, because there's always one thing.
You see some of these agents, and they get a large following, and ego blows up. And you see it online, the ego's there. How you don't have that at all whatsoever. I don't see ego bad ego, should I say?
I used to probably about 4 years ago, I reckon.
Yeah,
I think when
really?
When I was in the early 20s, because I started like doing very well for someone so young, and everyone's like, you can't do it. I was like, well, fuck you guys, and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Like I probably, not so much on a social presence, but I think it just in general, I think I did. But I think after realising it's not all about that, like everyone goes through that stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it all changes. So
yeah. So if you look at yourself at 26 years old, where do you see yourself at 37? So 26 to 36.
I don't know. Like honestly, I'd like to have a family and stuff. That's always been an important thing. But I would honestly just see our expansion of our office. Like I think that's just massive. And what we're doing is just going to be a ripple effect on so many other people are going to try and replicate it and duplicate it, which is great because I think that's an important part of real estate. But honestly, it's a good question. I actually don't know. Like we're still going to be dominating a lot of the space in Brisbane and stuff, but we want to be Brisbane's best office.
Brisbane's best office.
Yeah. And that's more in like, yes, I know we probably will be as a cultural perspective, but as a top performing perspective, we've got, even in the Place Group, we've got the least amount of agents in our office, and we're still in the top, 1 to 2 people, 1 to 2 teams. So,
congratulations,
mate. Being conscious of time, because we definitely want to go check out this office.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up with one last question. Your one piece of advice, or your best piece of advice for any agent, buyer's agent, looking to tackle social media.
Be yourself.
Done.
Simple.
Yeah.
Be yourself. And bite off more than you can chew, and chew like fuck.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mate, my last question for you. Where's the best place to grab a bite in Brisbane?
Ooh.
That's
depends
a good
what
one.
food you like. Ooh. Yeah. If you want the best coffee, I reckon Bellissimo is the best coffee.
Yep.
That's in just off James Street. I don't know. Depends what you like.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, mine's like steak. So I love a steak. Like SK is good. It's expensive. But they've got some really good steak and stuff. But it honestly just depends what you like. Cool. So Stanley's really good down the Howard Smith Wharf, which is like Japanese food, all that sort of stuff. So
Beautiful.
Just
I feel like Brisbane now is like very different. Like
It's kind of
Sydney-
nice, man.
well,
it's really nice.
Well, Sydney, Melbourne, right? Sydney, Melbourne used to be like, yeah, everyone goes there to eat. And like, I honestly, like, I've been to Melbourne a few times and Sydney. I'm like, I actually think Brisbane has better restaurants
Brisbane's
than those
a
places
vibe,
now.
especially
And
with
like,
the
I'm
Colour
not just
Hotel.
saying that because I live here, but like the amount of like epic restaurants and like where the new casino is and all this sort of stuff, like, we've got so much infrastructure here
It's
and
crazy.
so many cranes. It's like, it's actually insane.
It is
If
insane.
you
I
guys
hate the
haven't-
roads, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
roads.
The roads
suck.
are horrendous. They're worse
Yeah.
than Sydney.
Yeah.
If you said nice beaches, this would be the spot.
Yeah, nice beach, you're river, mate. We've got South Bank Beach, which is not a beach, but it's a man-made one.
Well, mate, I appreciate your time today and for hosting us in this apartment. I look forward to going to this coffee shop.
Mate,
Awesome.
Thank
Done.
you. Legend.
Sweet as.